Hello, my name is Jennifer Van Domelen. I am a senior instructor at Dalhousie, and I'm the primary instructor in Biology 1020 and Biology 1021, our online biology courses. We've been online for several years now. I really like teaching biology this way. I know you're going to learn a lot, so we're really excited to have you join us in the fall. In this introduction, you'll also meet Gillian Gass. She's going to tell you about some of the big ideas in biology, those ideas that guide our thinking and guide our questioning about the natural world. And Todd Bishop is going to tell you a little bit about how the concepts you'll be learning about this fall apply to a particular case study. So thanks for watching, have a great summer, and we'll see you again in September.
Living things are everywhere. From remote and extreme environments to the neighborhood you live in. There aren't any whale sharks in my immediate neighborhood, but here are two biological mysteries from closer to my own backyard. One rainy day this spring, I came outside to find more than 20 snails, of the kind that you see here, gathered in the garden at the end of my driveway, where I hadn't seen them before, at least not this year. Where did they come from? Where had they been before this, and what caused them to gather like this on that particular day? This sugar maple is having a good summer. It's growing a bunch of new leaves. Why aren't they green yet? Why do these new leaves look more like the old leaves that have changed color and are going to fall off the tree in the autumn? What happens to make these new leaves turn green? What causes the change? How does it happen and when? The best way for you to get ready to take biology in the fall is to spend some time this summer thinking like a biologist about the world around you. Look for questions you can ask, and think of some answers that might make sense, based on what you already know about how living things work. In the next couple of minutes, I'm going to introduce you to some really important central questions in biology. Some ideas that we use to organize our thinking and that you can get used to using too. One of the first things you'll read when you start Biology 1020 this fall is a section of a report called Vision and Change. In the section that you'll read, you'll learn about 5 core concepts in biology: evolution, structure and function, information flow, exchange and storage, pathways and transformations of energy and matter, and systems. Let's look at each one now, with a short definition from the Vision and Change report. Evolution. The diversity of life evolved over time by processes of mutation, selection, and genetic change. Your course textbook says really nicely that evolution is biology's core theme. It's the one idea that makes sense of everything we know about living organisms. So our knowledge of species that are alive today, like the snails and the sugar maple, as well as our knowledge of species that are now extinct, shows us how this tremendous diversity in the world is united based in this underlying unity of our common ancestry. Structure and function. Basic units of structure define the function of all living things. A big part of thinking biologically is noticing over and over again how particular biological structures make possible particular functions. So, for example, the amino acid sequence of a protein is a major determinant of its three-dimensional shape. And the three-dimensional shape of a protein is what allows it to perform its function. It's what allows it to do its job in the cell. As, for example, the protein hemoglobin has a function within the red blood cells that you see here. A structural change in the amino acid sequence, for example, due to a mutation, can actually impact the ability of that protein to do its work in the cell, in turn affecting that cell's ability to function within the organism. Or think about those sugar maple leaves. How does their broad, flat shape relate to their function of collecting light energy for photosynthesis? Information flow, exchange, and storage. The growth and behavior of organisms are activated through the expression of genetic information in context. Information flows within biological systems, within cells, within organisms, within ecosystems. So, for example, you'll see in this class how cells have a way of sensing the environment around them and responding to it, of signaling other cells. A particular signal, like a hormone received by a cell, can cause that cell to respond in a particular way. And you'll also look at the way that information can be stored, within, for example, DNA, and then passed on to offspring in later generations. If we think back to my immediate question when I saw those 20-some snails suddenly, and I guess that's a little funny to think of snails doing anything suddenly show up at the garden at the end of my driveway, we might frame that as an information flow or exchange question. What information from the environment prompted those snails to behave in that way? And how, within the body of each snail, did that environmental signal get translated, transduced might be the better word here, into a change in behavior? Pathways and transformations of energy and matter. Biological systems grow and change by processes based upon chemical transformation pathways and are governed by the laws of thermodynamics. Organisms break down molecules and build new ones. They transform matter from one form to another form. They can transform energy between various forms within cells. A plant can take light energy from sunlight and use this energy to power chemical reactions to create sugar molecules, which are a way for the plant to store energy for later use. I'm an animal, not a plant, so I get my energy-containing molecules from the food that I eat. And then later, both I and a sugar maple can break down those storage molecules and link that breakdown to other reactions that make it possible for our cells to do their work. So, this process of transformation of energy and matter gives biologists one way of thinking about what it is to be organisms. If you're an organism, you can take in some of what's around you and use it for what it is you need to do. And finally, systems. Living systems are connected and interacting. Systems are another pretty endlessly fascinating way that we think about the world in biology. Biological systems are complex systems, which is to say they have a lot of interacting parts. The dynamics between their parts are complex, and we also get to think all the time about different levels of organization. So, for example, we might think at the molecular level of the gene. Genes and other environmental cues are going to affect the expression of other genes. At a level up, cells are going to signal and respond to other cells. Cells combine to form tissues, and multiple tissues make up organs. If we think about the digestive system of, let's say, one of those 20-some snails in my garden, that digestive system is made up of several different organs. And in addition to a digestive system, an organism like a snail or a human will have several different organ systems. Organisms themselves are going to interact with one another and with aspects of their physical environment. Taken all together, this pretty wild complexity that characterizes biological systems means that it's really challenging to study biology, to make sense of these various systems and their parts and interactions, and it's really satisfying to get anywhere at all with this. It also means that there's so much that we don't know yet, even about the organisms that we see around us all the time. And that's why you can do a lot of good preparation for starting biology in the fall just by paying close attention to the life around you right now, using these 5 concepts to help you make sense of the living world the way that you will as a student of biology this fall. Living things are complicated, and because of this, life as a biology student can be pretty challenging, but it's so worth the effort. We're excited to work with you this fall.